Snow was falling over Seoul when Zainab Adeyemi realized she was about to kiss a man who wasn't her fiancé. His hand was on her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with impossible gentleness. Their breaths mingled in the cold February air, white clouds suspended between them like questions waiting to be answered. Kang Hajun's dark eyes held hers with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe, forget the wedding dress hanging in her closet back home, forget everything except this moment on a rooftop in Bukchon where the city lights made the snowflakes look like falling stars. "I shouldn't be here," Z whispered, but she didn't pull away. "I know," Hajun said, leaning closer, "but you are." And then his lips were on hers, soft and certain and devastating, and somewhere in the back of her mind, Z understood that nothing would ever be the same again. But let me back up, because this story, it started 24 hours earlier with a terrible fiancé, 5 billion won, and the kind of proposition that changes everything. Before we dive in, if you're loving this already, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. And drop a comment telling me what you'd do in Z's position. Would you take the money? Let's get into it. Flashback to Valentine's Eve. The engagement party was everything Z had never wanted. Too loud, too expensive, too much champagne flowing while her friends shrieked and took selfies in the VIP section of Seoul's most exclusive lounge in Gangnam. She sat in the corner booth watching it all unfold like she was separated from everyone by thick glass, able to see but not quite touch the joy she was supposed to be feeling. Her best friend Kioma appeared with another drink. "Girl, why do you look like you're at a funeral instead of your own party?" "I'm fine," Z lied, twisting the engagement ring on her finger. The diamond caught the strobing lights, throwing rainbow fragments across the table. "Just tired." Kioma knew her too well to buy that. "Where's James?" Z glanced toward the bar where her fiancé was holding court with a group of men she'd never met, his laugh too loud, his movements loose. "Celebrating." "He's drunk. He's always drunk lately." The words slipped out before Z could stop them. Kioma sat down, suddenly serious. "Z, it's not too late to—" "Don't." Z couldn't have that conversation. Not now, not here, with 200 guests and a wedding in 7 days, and her mother's dreams riding on every decision. "I'm just nervous. Pre-wedding jitters. Everyone has them." But even as she said it, Z knew that wasn't quite true. Jitters were normal. This hollow feeling in her chest, this sense of watching her life happen to someone else. That was something different entirely. What she didn't know was that someone was watching her. Upstairs in the owner's private section, Kang Hajun sat alone with expensive whiskey he wasn't drinking, watching the celebration below with the detached interest of a man who had long since stopped believing in happiness. He was 38 years old, the dim light carved out the sharp, predatory angles of his face, high, aristocratic cheekbones and a jawline that looked cut from cold marble. His eyes were dark voids of obsidian, unreadable and terrifyingly calm, set above a broad, lethal frame that filled his bespoke suit with quiet power. He was successful beyond most people's dreams and completely empty in ways that money couldn't fix. His business partner Choi Yong-sun appeared at his shoulder. "Boss, you should go home. It's almost midnight." Hajun didn't need to ask what that meant. Midnight on February 13th became midnight on February 14th, and February 14th was the day Hajun had learned that love could be taken away in the space of a heartbeat, stolen by a drunk driver who ran a red light and destroyed everything. 5 years. 5 years of spending this day alone because the alternative, pretending to be happy, pretending to move on, felt like betraying her memory. "I'll leave soon," Hajun said, though they both knew he wouldn't. That's when the commotion started. A red Porsche was blocking the main entrance, and the driver, clearly intoxicated, was arguing with security about why he didn't need to move it. Hajun recognized him immediately, the loud fiancé from the engagement party, the one who'd been getting progressively drunker while his beautiful bride-to-be sat alone in the corner, looking like she wanted to disappear. Should I handle this? Yongsun asked, tension evident in his voice. But before Hajun could answer, a woman in a black dress appeared at the man's side. She spoke rapidly in perfect Korean, apologizing to security, then turned to her fiancé with quiet authority. James, move the car, now! The man, James, laughed. Relax, babe. I'm talking to these guys. You're drunk and blocking the entrance. Her voice remained calm but firm. Move the car, or give me the keys. God, you're so dramatic. Hajun watched the woman's jaw tighten, watched her take a breath before turning back to security. I'm so sorry. He'll move it right now. She plucked the keys from her fiancé's hand before he could protest. I'll park it myself. Z, come on. Get in, she said, already walking toward the driver's side. Hajun didn't plan to get involved. He ran nightclubs and hotels across Seoul, dealt with drunk patrons every weekend, knew better than to insert himself into other people's drama. But something about the way she'd handled that situation, the grace under pressure, the quiet competence, made him stand up. By the time he reached the ground floor, the Porsche had been moved and the woman, Z, was standing alone in the cold, her coat wrapped tight against the February wind. She was on her phone, and from her expression, the conversation wasn't going well. Hajun approached carefully. Excuse me, Ms. Adeyemi? She turned, surprised. How do you know my name? Your friends were celebrating you quite enthusiastically earlier. He gestured back toward the lounge. I'm Kang Hajun. I own this establishment. Recognition flickered across her face. The owner. Right. I'm sorry about the scene outside. You have nothing to apologize for. You handled it with remarkable grace. He paused, making a decision that would change both their lives. Could I have 5 minutes of your time? I have a business proposition. Z's eyes narrowed slightly. What kind of proposition? The kind better discussed somewhere warm and private. No obligations, just a conversation. She should have said no. Should have walked away from the stranger offering mysterious propositions at midnight. But something in his voice, the sadness beneath the professionalism, made her curious. 5 minutes, she agreed. They went upstairs to his office, a minimalist space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. The city sprawled below them, endless lights reflecting off the Han River, millions of people living millions of lives. Hajun gestured to a chair and Z sat, straight-backed and wary. So, she said. What's this about? Hajun poured 2 glasses of water, buying time to find the right words. I'd like to hire you for tomorrow, February 14th, Valentine's Day. Z's expression shifted from curiosity to caution. Hire me for what exactly? Your time, your company, conversation. He met her eyes directly. Nothing inappropriate, nothing you don't consent to. Just presence. That's vague. I'm offering 5 billion won for 1 day of your time. The number hung between them like something physical. Z blinked, processed, then laughed, sharp and disbelieving. I'm sorry, did you say 5 billion won? Approximately $4 million US, yes? For conversation. Yes. Z stood up, shaking her head. Mr. Kang, I don't know what kind of woman you think I am, but I'm not. I think you're someone who handles crisis with grace, Hajun interrupted gently. Someone genuine in a room full of performance. Someone who might understand what it means to go through the motions of happiness while feeling completely alone. The words hit too close. Z sat back down slowly. Tomorrow is a difficult day for me, Hajun continued. I've spent it alone for 5 years. This year, I'd like to try something different. I'd like to spend it with someone real. Someone who doesn't pretend. He leaned forward slightly. I watched you tonight at your own engagement party. You looked like you were drowning. That's presumptuous. Is it wrong? Z wanted to say yes, wanted to be offended, to storm out, to go back to her party and her drunk fiancé and her perfectly planned life. But the truth was sitting heavy in her chest, and this stranger had somehow seen it written all over her face. I'm getting married next week, she said finally. This would be completely inappropriate. I understand. The offer stands until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Hajun pulled out a business card and slid it across the desk. Think about it. I won't change my mind. That's your choice. He stood, signaling the end of the conversation. Thank you for hearing me out. Z took the card more out of politeness than interest and left without another word. But as she descended the stairs back to her party, she found herself clutching it tight enough to crease the edges. Outside the lounge, James was nowhere to be found. Z called him 3 times before he answered. Babe, where are you? His words were slurred. I've been looking for you. Where did you go? I left already. Feeling sick. Get yourself home, yeah? The line went dead. Z stared at her phone in disbelief. He'd left her. Left his own fiancé at their engagement party without a word. And now she was standing in the cold, trying to figure out how to get home. That's when the black Mercedes pulled up and the window lowered. Kang Hajun looked out at her with something that might have been sympathy. Need a ride? Z should have refused. Should have called a taxi, called Kioma, called anyone except the man who'd just offered her an absurd amount of money for a single day. But she was tired and cold and suddenly so angry at James that accepting felt like a tiny rebellion. Just a ride home, she said firmly, getting in. Nothing else. Just a ride, Hajun agreed. They drove in silence for a while, the city flowing past outside. Finally, Z spoke. Why tomorrow? Why is Valentine's Day so difficult? Hajun's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I lost someone I loved 5 years ago tomorrow. A drunk driver ran a red light and killed her instantly. The rawness in his voice made Z's throat tight. I'm so sorry. She was walking to meet me for dinner. I was going to propose that night. He glanced at Z briefly before returning his eyes to the road. I've spent every February 14th since then at her grave, alone, because being with anyone else felt like betraying her memory. And this year I'm tired of being alone. But I can't do shallow conversation with someone who doesn't understand grief. I can't pretend to be happy. He pulled up in front of her apartment building. You looked like someone who might understand that. Someone who knows what it means to smile while drowning. Z sat with his words for a long moment. Then she opened the door. I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Kang. But I can't help you. Good night. She was halfway to her building when he called out. Ms. Adeyemi. The offer stands. 9 a.m. Z didn't turn around. She just kept walking, knowing she wouldn't call, knowing this was the end of this strange encounter. Except it wasn't. Drop a like if you're already hooked, and stick around because this is about to get wild. Inside her apartment, Kioma was waiting. Girl, what happened? James said you disappeared. He left me there. Z kicked off her heels, suddenly exhausted. Just left without saying goodbye. That man is trash. No, I'm serious. He's trash and you know it. Chioma followed her into the bedroom. What are you doing, Z? You don't love him. I'm marrying him. Why? The question hung there, simple and impossible. Why was she marrying James? Because her mother had been planning this since Z was 5? Because the Adeyemi family didn't call off weddings? Because starting over at 27 felt impossible? It's complicated, Z said instead. It's not, though. You're choosing comfortable over happy. You're choosing what everyone expects over what you actually want. Kioma sat on the bed. And before you say it, I know about your mom. I know she has MS, and stress makes it worse. But Z, you're sacrificing yourself. Z said nothing. What could she say? Kioma was right, and they both knew it. After her friend left, Z couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Hajun's words. Someone who knows what it means to smile while drowning. How had a stranger seen her so clearly in a 5-minute conversation when James had looked at her for 4 years and never once asked if she was happy? At 3 a.m., she found herself holding Hajun's business card. At 4 a.m., she was Googling him. Kang Hajun, CEO of Kang Holdings. Hotels, restaurants, real estate across Seoul. No scandal, no drama, just a successful businessman who kept his private life private. At 8 a.m., Z made a decision that would change everything. She called him. Ms. Adeyemi. He answered on the first ring, voice alert despite the early hour. I'll accept your offer, with conditions. Name them. This stays professional, conversation only. No physical contact unless I initiate it. And I want to understand why this day matters so much to you. Really understand it. Agreed. I'll send a car. No, text me the address. I'll take a taxi. She needed to maintain some control, some sense that this was her choice. Of course. Thank you, Ms. Adeyemi. Z, she said. If we're spending the day together, you can call me Z. A pause then. Z, I'll see you soon. After hanging up, Z sat on her bed and wondered what she'd just agreed to. One day with a stranger. One day for more money than she could imagine. One day that felt like the first real choice she'd made in years. She texted James, spending the day with a client. Wedding stuff can wait until tonight. His response came 10 minutes later. Cool. Have fun. No apology for abandoning her. No questions about who she was meeting. Just casual indifference wrapped in 2 words. Z looked at her engagement ring, the diamond her mother had praised for hours, the symbol of a life she'd agreed to without ever really choosing it. Slowly, deliberately, she slid it off her finger and left it on the nightstand. Just for today, she thought. Just one day without carrying someone else's expectations. The taxi dropped her at a traditional hanok in Bukchon, one of Seoul's most exclusive neighborhoods. The house was beautiful. Traditional Korean architecture mixed with obvious wealth, situated among narrow streets and old walls that had stood for centuries. Snow from the night before still clung to the curved roof tiles and bare tree branches, making everything look like a painting. Hajun was waiting at the gate, and Z almost didn't recognize him. Gone was the suited businessman from last night. This man wore a charcoal sweater and dark jeans, his hair slightly mussed like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked younger, more approachable, almost vulnerable. You came, he said, and something in his voice suggested he hadn't quite believed she would. I said I would. Z approached slowly, taking in the house. You live here? It was my parents' home. I've kept it exactly as they left it. They passed away? My father 6 years ago. Heart attack. My mother 4 years ago. Cancer. He pushed open the gate. Come in. I made breakfast. You cooked? When something matters, you don't outsource it. The courtyard was stunning. Snow-dusted stone pathways wound between carefully maintained plants, leading to a traditional wooden structure with paper doors and curved eaves. A table had been set outside despite the cold, covered with dishes that made Z's stomach growl unexpectedly. I wasn't sure what you'd like, Hajun said, a hint of nervousness creeping into his composed exterior. So I made Korean breakfast, rice, soup, banchan, and also scrambled eggs, toast, fruit, whatever appeals to you. Z stared at the spread. You made all this? I told you, when it matters. He pulled out a chair for her, then sat across the table. Please, eat. They ate in comfortable silence at first, but Z found herself stealing glances at this man who was somehow nothing like she'd expected. There was a carefulness to him, a consideration in every movement. He refilled her tea before she had to ask, moved dishes closer when he noticed her eyeing them, said nothing when she mixed Western and Korean food in ways that probably broke all culinary rules. This is really good, Z said finally, and meant it. Thank you. Hajun set down his chopsticks. Tell me about yourself. How did a Nigerian woman end up working in Seoul's art scene? And somehow, with this stranger in a snow-covered courtyard, Z found herself talking. Really talking. In a way she hadn't in years. She told him about studying Korean language and art history in university, about falling in love with the way traditional and contemporary art collided in Seoul's galleries, about moving here 3 years ago with big dreams of connecting African and Korean artists, building bridges between cultures that had so much to learn from each other. My mother thought I was crazy, Z admitted. Leaving Lagos for Seoul? Why not London, or New York, or somewhere that made sense to her? Why Seoul? Hajun asked, genuinely curious. Because everyone goes to London and New York. Because I wanted to do something that hadn't been done before. She paused, surprised at her own honesty. And because I wanted to prove I could. And did you? Prove it? Z thought about her modest apartment, her slowly growing client list, the galleries that were finally starting to return her calls after 3 years of persistence. I'm getting there. It's slower than I hoped, but I'm getting there. James supports your work. The question was casual, but something in Hajun's tone suggested he already knew the answer. He thinks it's a hobby, something I'll outgrow once we're married and I get serious about a real career. The bitterness in her voice surprised her. He works in finance. Very practical, very logical. Art doesn't make sense to him. And marriage to him makes sense to you? The question should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt necessary, like someone had finally asked what everyone else was too polite to voice. My mother's sick, Z said quietly. Multiple sclerosis. Stress makes it worse. She's been dreaming of my wedding since I was 5 years old. The big church ceremony, the traditional Nigerian attire, marrying into a good family. She twisted her napkin. How do I tell her I don't want this? How do I explain that choosing myself means breaking her heart? Hajun was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. My mother had vitiligo, patches of depigmentation on her hands, her arms, her face. She was beautiful, but she spent most of her life covering up, hiding, convinced she was somehow defective. Z's hand moved unconsciously to her own arm, where similar patches marked her skin, something she usually concealed with long sleeves and careful makeup. She used to tell me, Hajun continued, that the vitiligo started appearing when she was young, around the time she learned to stop asking for what she wanted. To be quiet, agreeable, small, her body kept score of all the things she swallowed. He met Z's eyes. She died convinced she wasn't enough. I don't want that for you. Tears pricked Z's eyes. You can't just say things like that to someone you barely know. Why not? If no one else is saying them? Before Z could respond, her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. Beta, have you picked up your dress? The wedding is in 6 days. Reality crashed back in. 6 days. In 6 days, she was supposed to walk down an aisle toward a man who'd abandoned her at her own party, who thought her dreams were hobbies, who'd never once asked if she was drowning. I should go, Z said abruptly. We have all day. You agreed. I know what I agreed to. She stood, suddenly panicking. But I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be telling you these things. I don't even know you. Hajun stood slowly, holding up his hands in a calming gesture. You're right. I'm sorry I pushed too hard. He took a breath. How about this? I'll show you something that matters to me. No pressure, no deep questions. Just let me share my day with you the way I planned. And if at any point you want to leave, I'll call you a car immediately. Deal. Z found herself nodding despite every rational thought screaming at her to run. They drove through Seoul in Hajun's Mercedes, the city waking up around them. He took her to Insadong, to a tiny restaurant tucked between tourist shops, where an elderly woman greeted him with such genuine warmth that Z felt like she was watching a family reunion. Hajuna! The woman, Mrs. Kim, pulled him into a hug before turning to examine Z with open curiosity. And who is this beautiful girl? A friend, Hajun said simply. Mrs. Kim, this is Z. Z, this is the woman who kept me alive through law school. Law school? Z looked at him with surprise. Mrs. Kim beamed. Seoul National University, top of his class. We were so proud. You practiced law? Z asked as they sat down. For 2 years. Hated every minute of it. Hajun accepted the tea Mrs. Kim poured without asking what they wanted. My father built a small hotel business. When he died suddenly, someone had to take over. Turned out I was better at that than arguing cases. Do you regret it? Sometimes. But regret is expensive. I try not to afford it. Mrs. Kim brought food. Too much food, dishes arriving in waves until the table groaned under the weight. She fussed over Z, making sure she tried everything, asking about her work with the kind of genuine interest that made Z's throat tight. "You come here often?" Z asked June after Mrs. Kim finally retreated to the kitchen. "Every week for 20 years. This place got me through exams, through my parents' deaths, through—" He stopped, something painful crossing his face. "Through everything." They ate, and Z found herself relaxing despite everything. There was something about June's presence that felt safe, solid. He listened when she talked, really listened, asking follow-up questions that showed he was actually paying attention. It was such a stark contrast to James, who usually scrolled through his phone during dinner, offering occasional mm-hms that made it clear he wasn't hearing a word. After lunch, June took her to a flower shop in Insadong. The elderly florist lit up when he entered, greeting him like a son. "2 bouquets today," June said. "Red roses and white roses." The florist prepared them carefully, wrapping each bouquet with practiced hands. June gave the red roses to Z. "These are beautiful," she said, surprised. "Thank you." He said nothing, just held the white roses carefully. Something in his expression had shifted, grown heavier. "There's somewhere I need to go," he said quietly. "You can wait in the car if you prefer." But Z found herself saying, "I'd like to come, if that's okay." Relief flashed across his face. "Thank you." They drove to Seoul Memorial Park, a peaceful cemetery overlooking the city. June led her to a family plot where 3 headstones stood in a row. His parents, and beside them, a third stone that made everything suddenly devastatingly clear. Lee Soyeon, 1990 to 2020, February 14th. "We were together for 3 years, June said, his voice stripped of all inflection. "I bought the ring 6 months before, planned everything perfectly. Valentine's Day proposal at her favourite restaurant, the whole romantic gesture." He placed the white roses carefully at the base of her headstone. "She was walking from her office to meet me. A drunk driver ran a red light at the intersection. She died before the ambulance arrived." Z's hand moved to cover her mouth. "June. The driver got 2 years probation. 2 years for killing the person I loved most in the world." His jaw tightened. "His family had expensive lawyers, good connections. The system failed her, failed me, failed everyone who loved her." "I'm so sorry." The words felt inadequate, useless. "I come here every February 14th, spend the day alone because being with anyone else felt like betraying her memory." He finally looked at Z, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "But 5 years of this. I'm so tired, Z. I'm tired of being alone. I'm tired of letting one terrible moment define the rest of my life." Without thinking, Z reached for his hand, their fingers intertwined, and June looked down at their joined hands like he couldn't quite believe they were real. "She would want you to be happy," Z said softly. "Anyone who loved you would want that." "I know. Intellectually, I know that." He squeezed her hand gently. "But knowing and feeling are different things." They stood there in silence, snow beginning to fall again, 2 people brought together by grief and loneliness and the desperate human need to be seen. Z felt something shift in her chest, a loosening of some tight band she'd been wearing for so long she'd forgotten it was there. "What would you normally do now?" she asked. "Go home, sit alone until midnight, let the day pass." "Let's not do that." Z surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. "Show me something that makes you happy. Something that has nothing to do with grief or loss or the past. Something that reminds you why life is worth living." June studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. A real smile that transformed his entire face. "I know just the place." He took her to Liam Museum, Samsung's art museum in Hanam-dong. The building itself was a work of art, 3 structures designed by different architects, each one a statement in steel and glass and concrete. Inside, contemporary art mixed with traditional Korean pieces in ways that made Z's heart sing. "You love this," Hajun observed, watching her face as she stood before a massive installation piece. "I live for this." Z couldn't hide her enthusiasm. "This is why I'm in Seoul. This collision of old and new, traditional and contemporary. It's magic." They wandered through galleries, and for the first time all day, Z was the one talking, explaining techniques and movements, the history behind certain pieces, the way colour and form could communicate things words never could. Hajun listened with complete attention, asking questions that showed he was actually engaging, not just humouring her. "James has never come to a gallery with me," Z said without thinking, then immediately wished she could take it back. But Hajun just nodded. His loss. They were standing in front of a massive canvas, abstract, violent slashes of red and black, when Z's phone started buzzing incessantly. She pulled it out and her stomach dropped. 5 missed calls from James, 3 from her mother, 7 text messages. "I need to," she started. "Of course. Take your time." Hajun moved away to give her privacy. Z stepped into the hallway and called James back. "Finally!" His voice was sharp with irritation. "Where have you been? Your mum's been calling me." "I told you. Client meeting." "All day, on a Saturday, on Valentine's Day?" He laughed, but there was no humour in it. "Come on, Z, what's really going on?" "I'm working, James. Some of us have to actually work on weekends. That art thing isn't real work. When are you going to—" "Stop." The word came out harder than she intended. "Just stop. You left me at my own engagement party last night, drunk, without saying goodbye, and now you're questioning what I'm doing today." Silence on the line. Then, "I texted you." "You abandoned me and texted. That's your defense?" "Jesus, Z, why are you being so dramatic? I was sick. I went home. What did you want me to do?" "I wanted you to care. I wanted you to at least pretend like I mattered more than your next drink." "Where is this coming from? Are you on your period or something?" The casual misogyny hit her like a slap. 4 years. 4 years of these little cuts, these small dismissals, death by 1,000 paper cuts until she barely recognized herself anymore. "I have to go," she said. "Wait, your mum wants to know if you picked up your dress." Z hung up. Her hands were shaking. She stared at her phone, at the engagement photo that was her lock screen. Both of them smiling, James's arm around her waist, the picture of a perfect couple. The lie of it suddenly felt suffocating. "Everything all right?" Hajun had returned, keeping a respectful distance. "No." The word escaped before she could stop it. "Nothing is all right. Nothing has been all right for a long time, and I've just been pretending." Her voice cracked. "I've been pretending so hard that I almost convinced myself it was real." Hajun moved closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. "Tell me." And maybe it was because he was essentially a stranger. Or maybe it was because he'd already shared his own pain so openly, but Z found herself spilling everything. 4 years of feeling invisible. 4 years of having her dreams dismissed as hobbies. The way James got drunk at least 3 times a week. The way he'd stopped asking about her day months ago. The way her mother's health hung over every decision like a sword waiting to drop. "I can't leave him," Z said finally, tears streaming down her face. "My mother has MS. Stress triggers her flares. She's been planning this wedding since I was 5. If I call it off now—" "You're sacrificing yourself to keep others comfortable," Hajun said quietly. "Trust me, Z. That's a debt that never gets paid. You'll give and give and give, and it will never be enough. And one day you'll wake up and not recognize the person in the mirror. You don't understand. My mother did the same thing." His voice was firm but gentle. She spent her whole life being what everyone needed her to be. Covered her vitiligo because it made others uncomfortable. Stayed quiet when she disagreed because good wives don't argue. Supported my father's dreams while letting hers die. He paused. "When she was dying, you know what she told me? She said she couldn't remember the last time she'd done something just because she wanted to. Not because it was expected, not because someone else needed it, just because it made her happy. Z wiped at her tears, trying to compose herself. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be dumping all this on you. Why not? I asked you here to not be alone. You being real, actually honest about how you feel, that's the least alone I've felt in 5 years. They left the museum as the sun started setting, painting Seoul in shades of orange and pink. Ha-jun drove them back to Bukchon, and Z found herself not wanting the day to end, not wanting to go back to her real life where nothing had changed, but everything felt different now. I should check on something, Ha-jun said as they entered his neighborhood. Work emergency. Do you mind? Of course not. But instead of going to his house, Ha-jun pulled up in front of a building Z recognized immediately. Harbour House Seoul, a women's shelter where she'd been volunteering for the past year, helping Nigerian and other African women navigate the Korean system when they needed to escape dangerous situations. What are we? Z started, then stopped as the shelter director came out to greet them. Mr. Kang! Director Park's face lit up. We weren't expecting you today. Just dropping off some paperwork, Ha-jun said smoothly. Director Park, this is Z Adeyemi. She volunteers here. Z! Of course, I didn't recognize you out of context. Director Park smiled warmly. Mr. Kang is one of our most generous donors. His foundation covers almost 40% of our annual budget. Z turned to stare at Ha-jun, who suddenly looked uncomfortable. It's nothing, he said quickly. Nothing? Director Park laughed. You've kept us afloat for 3 years. That's not nothing. After Director Park went back inside, Z couldn't contain her questions. You donate to Harbour House? Why didn't you tell me? Because some things aren't meant to be announced. They're just meant to be done. Ha-jun pulled back onto the road. You volunteer there. You know why it matters. Because women shouldn't have to choose between danger and homelessness. Because the system fails them and someone has to step up. Z felt something warm blooming in her chest. You're not what I expected, Kang Ha-jun. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone harder. Someone who'd become successful by stepping on others. She looked at him, really looked at him. But you're not that at all, are you? I'm just someone who learned that when the system fails people, you have 2 choices. Accept it or do something about it. His jaw tightened slightly. I couldn't save Soyeon. The drunk driver who killed her barely faced consequences. But I can make sure women at Harbour House have a chance to escape before it's too late. They drove in silence for a while, Z processing this new understanding of the man beside her. She'd come here thinking this was about money, about some wealthy businessman's eccentric request. But this was about something much more fundamental. 2 lonely people, both drowning in different ways, reaching for connection on the one day that hurt most. Back at the Hanok, Ha-jun prepared dinner. Nothing fancy, just soup and rice and side dishes, but made with care. They ate on the floor of the living room, traditional style, as night fell completely outside. Thank you, Z said suddenly, for today, for seeing me. Thank you for letting me not be alone. Ha-jun set down his spoon. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why do you hide them? The vitiligo patches. Z's hand moved instinctively to cover her arm. Because people stare. Because it makes me different. And I'm already different enough being Nigerian in Seoul. Because my mother used to buy me long sleeves and say it was better to cover up, that boys wouldn't understand. My mother said something similar, that people were more comfortable when they couldn't see it. Ha-jun reached across the table slowly, giving Z time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers traced one of the patches on her hand, feather-light, reverent. But Soyeon had it too, on her shoulders, her back. And I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Like someone had painted constellations on her skin. Z's breath caught. No one had ever described her vitiligo as beautiful, as anything other than a flaw to be managed, minimized, hidden away. You don't have to hide with me, Hajun said softly. Any part of yourself. The art dreams your fiancé dismisses. The grief you're not allowed to feel about a life you don't want. The skin you were taught to cover. His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. With me, you can just be. Something inside Z cracked open. Before she could think better of it, she was crying, not delicate tears, but full body-shaking sobs that she'd been holding back for months, maybe years. And Hajun just moved around the table and held her, asking nothing, offering everything. If this story is hitting you in the feels, hit that like button. And comment below, have you ever felt trapped in a life you didn't choose? Let's talk about it. When Z finally composed herself, she found herself telling Hajun everything. Her mother's MS diagnosis 5 years ago. The way her family had closed ranks, suddenly treating her like glass that might shatter. The weight of being the only daughter, the one expected to make the safe choices, marry the right man, have the stable life. James proposed at his parents' house, Z admitted. In front of his whole family. His mother was already crying before I could answer. Everyone had their phones out, recording, and I said yes, because what else could I do? Say no on camera? Humiliate him in front of everyone? So, you've been engaged for how long? 18 months. The wedding kept getting pushed back for various reasons. His work, my work, finding the right venue. Z laughed bitterly. I think I was subconsciously stalling. And now it's in 6 days. Now it's in 6 days and I'm sitting in a stranger's house on Valentine's Day telling him things I haven't even admitted to myself. She looked at Hajun. What am I doing? Being honest. Maybe for the first time in a long time. Z's phone buzzed again. She ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Finally she looked. 12 messages from James. She opened them and her blood ran cold. Where are you? Seriously, Z, your mom is freaking out. Is this about last night? I said I was sorry. You're being ridiculous. Fine, don't answer. You know what? I talked to my dad about that business thing. The guy who offered you money. Dad says if some rich dude wants to pay you just for hanging out, that's actually smart business. We could use that money for the honeymoon or the down payment on the Gangnam apartment. So yeah, if you want to do that, I'm cool with it. Just make sure you get the money first. Z stared at the messages, reading them over and over, unable to process what she was seeing. Her fiancé, the man she was supposed to marry in 6 days, was essentially giving her permission to spend time with another man for money, was encouraging it, because he saw it as a business opportunity. Z? Hajun had noticed her expression. What's wrong? She handed him the phone wordlessly, watched his face as he read, saw his expression shift from confusion to disgust. He thinks... Hajun couldn't finish the sentence. He handed back the phone like it had burned him. Z, I'm so sorry, I never meant... You didn't do anything wrong. Z's voice was surprisingly steady. You made an offer. He's the one who sees his fiancée as a commodity. She stood abruptly. I need air. She walked out to the courtyard, and Hajun followed but kept his distance. The night was clear, stars visible despite Seoul's light pollution. Z tilted her head back, trying to find constellations, trying to find anything solid to hold onto while her world tilted sideways. My father used to show me the stars, she said quietly, back in Lagos before he died. We'd sit in the backyard and he'd point out constellations, tell me their stories. She smiled despite the tears on her cheeks. Everyone else loved the bright stars, but I was always more interested in the dim ones, the ones you had to really look for. Why? Because they were still there, still shining even if no one noticed, still valuable even if they weren't the brightest. She touched the necklace she wore, a small star pendant slightly cracked. After he died, I bought this to remember him, a broken star that still shines. Hajun moved closer. May I show you something? He led her to a door she hadn't noticed before, up a narrow staircase to the roof. There, protected by a small glass enclosure, sat a telescope. Soyeon loved astronomy. Hajun explained, adjusting the telescope. We used to come up here and look at stars for hours. She'd tell me about how light from distant stars takes years to reach us. How we're always looking at the past when we look up. He stepped back, gesturing for Z to look. She pressed her eye to the lens and gasped. The stars were so close, so bright, rendered in a detail she'd never imagined. There, Hajun said, leaning close enough that she could feel his warmth. See that cluster that looks dim from below? Yes. Those are some of the hottest, brightest stars in the galaxy. They just look quiet from here because they're so far away. But up close, his voice softened. Up close, they're magnificent. Z pulled back from the telescope to find Hajun watching her with an intensity that made her heart stutter. They were inches apart, his breath visible in the cold air mingling with hers. Z, he said, and the way he said her name made something in her chest tighten. I need to tell you something. What? I know we just met. I know this entire day has been strange and probably ill-advised, but I need you to know. He stopped, searching for words. The money was never the point. I would have paid 10 times that just to not be alone today, just to spend time with someone real. Hajun, let me finish, please. He took a shaky breath. You walked into my club last night looking like you were drowning. And I recognize that look because I see it in the mirror every morning. 2 people going through the motions, performing happiness, dying slowly inside. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Today was the first day in 5 years I didn't want to end. The first day I felt alive instead of just surviving. Z's eyes filled with tears. This is crazy. We don't even know each other. Don't we? His voice was barely above a whisper. I know you're scared of being a burden. I know you make yourself small to fit other people's expectations. I know you dream bigger than anyone gives you credit for. I know you volunteer at a women's shelter because you can't stand the idea of anyone feeling trapped the way you do. His other hand came up to frame her face. And I know that right now, in this moment, you feel it too. This connection, this something. And God help her, she did. She felt it like a physical force, this pull toward him, like gravity had shifted and he was the center of everything. I'm getting married in 6 days, she whispered, but it sounded like a question. Are you? Hajun's eyes searched hers. Or are you going through motions because it's easier than choosing yourself? That's when Z's phone rang. Not a text this time, an actual call. From her mother. The spell broke. Z stepped back, creating space between them, and answered. Mama, a daisy. Her mother's voice was sharp with worry. Where have you been? I've been calling all day. I told you. Work event. On Valentine's Day? Z, the wedding is in 6 days. We need you here. The dress, the flowers, the... Mama, I can't do this right now. Silence. Then quieter. Can't do what? What are you saying? Z looked at Hajun, at this man who'd somehow seen straight through her defenses in a single day. Then she looked at the stars above them, at the broken star pendant around her neck, at the life she'd been building from everyone else's expectations. I need time to think, Z said finally. I'll call you tomorrow. Adeze Chidinma Adeyemi, you listen to me. Z hung up. Her hands were shaking. I just hung up on my mother. Are you okay? No, yes, I don't know. She laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. I don't know anything anymore. This morning I was getting married in 6 days. Tonight I'm standing on a roof with a man I just met, and all I can think about is... She stopped, because Hajun was looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for 5 years. What? Hajun prompted softly. All you can think about is what? Kissing you. The words escaped before her brain could filter them. All I can think about is what it would feel like to kiss you, and that's insane, right? That's absolutely insane. Hajun went very still. Z. I should go. I should definitely go. This is too much, too fast, too... Z. He said her name again, firmer this time, and she stopped talking. Do you want to go? The question hung between them. Simple. Impossible. No, she whispered. I don't want to go. That's the problem. Why is that a problem? Because I'm engaged. Because I'm supposed to be marrying someone else in 6 days. Because this entire day has been… She gestured helplessly between them. This isn't real. This is just… I don't know what this is. It feels real to me. Hajun took a step closer. Not touching, just close enough that she could feel his presence like heat. You feel real. The first real thing in 5 years. You're grieving. I'm running away from my life. We're both disasters. Maybe. A small smile tugged at his lips. Or maybe 2 disasters can hold each other up. Z's phone buzzed again. And again. The outside world demanding her attention, demanding she come back to reality, to responsibility, to the life she'd agreed to live. I can't think with everyone calling me, she said, frustration bleeding through. I can't think at all. Then don't think, Hajun's voice was gentle. Just be here, just for tonight. Tomorrow you can go back to your life and make whatever decisions you need to make. But tonight, he paused. Tonight just be Z. Not the perfect daughter, not the agreeable fiancé. Just you. Something in her chest loosened at his words. Permission. He was giving her permission to just exist without performing, without managing everyone else's emotions, without making herself smaller. Okay, she breathed. Just tonight. They went back downstairs and Hajun made tea while Z turned off her phone completely. The silence after the constant buzzing felt like relief, like taking off shoes that had been too tight for too long. They talked through the night. About everything and nothing. About Soyeon and what she'd been like. Her laugh, her stubbornness, the way she'd always stolen food from Hajun's plate, even when she had the exact same dish. About Z's father and his star stories, how he'd made her feel like she could be anything, do anything before cancer took him when she was 17. That's when it started, Z realized aloud. After he died, I became careful, manageable. The grief made my mother's MS worse, so I learned to be easy, to not cause problems, to accept what was offered instead of asking for what I wanted. And James was offered. His family and mine have known each other for years. He was appropriate, safe. My mother loved him. Z stared into her tea. I never asked myself if I loved him. I just went along with it. You can still walk away, can I? My mother's health, the family's, the wedding that's already paid for. All of that matters, Hajun interrupted gently. But Z, you matter too. Your happiness matters. Your dreams matter. He set down his cup. And I know I have no right to say this, no right to complicate your life even more, but I can't let you leave tomorrow without saying it. Saying what? That I haven't felt this alive in 5 years. That spending today with you has been… He struggled for words. It's been everything. You're everything. Z's breath caught. Hajun, we just met. I know. Believe me, I know how crazy this sounds, but sometimes you just know, don't you? Sometimes you meet someone and it's like recognizing a piece of yourself you didn't know was missing. His eyes held hers. I'm not asking you to choose me. I'm not asking you to blow up your life. I'm just asking you to consider that maybe what you feel right now is worth exploring. What I feel right now is terrified. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of how easy it would be to fall for you completely. The admission cost her something. Of how much I want to. Hajun stood slowly and moved to sit beside her on the floor, close but not touching. What if I told you I'm already falling? That I started falling the moment I watched you handle chaos with grace, speak Korean like poetry, defend a drunk fiancé who didn't deserve your loyalty? I'd say you're romanticizing a stranger. Then let me know you. Really know you. Not just today. His hand hovered near hers, asking permission. Stay tonight. Not, he clarified quickly. Not like that. Just stay. Talk to me until the sun comes up. Let me understand who Adayez Adeyemi really is when no one's watching. Z knew she should say no. Should call a taxi, go home, try to salvage what was left of her engagement and her mother's peace of mind. Should be sensible, practical, responsible. Instead, she laced her fingers through his. "Okay," she said, "I'll stay." They talked until 3 in the morning. Hajun told her about building his business from his father's small hotel into an empire, about the loneliness of success, about how money could buy anything except the thing he wanted most, someone to share it with, who saw him as just Hajun, not Kang Holdings, CEO. Z told him about her first year in Seoul, living in a tiny gosiwon with shared bathrooms, eating ramyun for weeks straight because she'd misjudged the exchange rate. About slowly building her reputation, gallery by gallery, artist by artist. About the pride she felt seeing African and Korean artists collaborate because she'd made the introduction. "James thinks it's cute," Z said, bitterness creeping in. "My little art project. He tells people his fiancé dabbles in galleries like it's a hobby I'll outgrow." "What would you do if money wasn't an issue?" Hajun asked. "If you didn't have to worry about rent or your mother's medical bills or anything practical?" Z didn't hesitate. "I'd open a gallery. A real space, not just online consultations, somewhere that specifically showcased African diaspora artists working in Asia. A bridge space." Her eyes lit up despite her exhaustion. "There's so much talent being overlooked because people don't know where to look. I could change that. I could—" She stopped, deflating. "But that takes capital I don't have. And James would never support me taking that kind of risk." "What if you had the capital?" "What do you mean?" Hajun was quiet for a moment. "The 5 billion won. I transferred it to your account this morning." Z jerked back. "What? No. Hajun, I can't accept that." "Why not?" "Because it's too much. It makes this whole thing feel like—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Like what? A transaction?" Hajun's voice was soft but firm. "Z, that money was never payment for your time. It was never about that. I offered it because I'm a wealthy man who wanted to spend a day with someone real, and I thought—" He paused. "I thought you might need an escape route. From James. From expectations, from everything that's trapping you." "I can't take your money." "Then don't take it for you. Donate it to Harbour House. Use it to fund 3 other women's galleries. I don't care." He moved closer. "But please, please don't reject it, because you think accepting help makes you weak or indebted or whatever narrative you've constructed about being a burden." Tears spilled down Z's cheeks. "You don't understand. My whole life, I've watched my mother struggle with her illness, with medical bills, with needing help. And I saw how it wore her down, how she hated needing things from others. I promised myself I'd never be that person, never need anything from anyone." "Z." Hajun wiped her tears gently. "There's a difference between needing someone because you can't survive without them, and letting someone help because they want to. Because helping you makes their life better too. This is too much. All of it. I met you yesterday. I know. And tomorrow you can go back to your life and pretend this never happened. You can marry James and make your mother happy and live the life everyone expects." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "Or you can consider that maybe, just maybe, the universe put us in the same room at the same time for a reason." They were so close now, faces inches apart, and Z could feel her resolve crumbling. Every rational thought was screaming at her to leave, to protect herself, to not fall for a man she'd known for less than 24 hours. But her heart was saying something different entirely. "If I kiss you," she whispered, "everything changes." "Everything already changed," Hajun whispered back. "The moment you walked into my club." And then, finally, inevitably, their lips met. It was soft at first, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something precious. But then Hajun's hand slid into her hair, and Z's fingers gripped his sweater, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home and falling off a cliff at the same time. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Z was crying again. "Hey," Hajun said softly, concerned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. That's the problem." She laughed through her tears. "I just kissed you and nothing's wrong. It should feel wrong. I'm engaged, I'm supposed to be loyal, I'm supposed to—" She stopped. "But it doesn't feel wrong. It feels like the first right thing I've done in years." Hajun pulled her close and Z let herself be held, let herself stop being strong and careful and manageable, let herself just feel. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other on the living room floor, fully clothed and completely exhausted. And when Z woke up to early morning sunlight streaming through the windows, Hajun's arms still around her, she felt a moment of perfect peace before reality came crashing back. Her phone. She'd turned it off last night. She extracted herself carefully from Hajun's embrace. He was still sleeping, face peaceful in a way she suspected it rarely was, and turned on her phone with a sense of dread. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages, 5 voicemails. Her mother, frantic, James, angry, Kioma, worried, the wedding planner, confused. Everyone demanding to know where she was, why she wasn't answering, what was happening. The last message was from James, sent at 2 a.m. "Fine. Don't answer. But you're embarrassing me in front of everyone. Whatever's going on, you better fix it before tomorrow. We have the final dress fitting, and my parents are flying in. Get your act together, Z." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm worried about you." Just, concern about embarrassment and scheduling. Z stared at the message, and something inside her finally, irrevocably broke. She was done. Done pretending. Done making herself smaller. Done living for everyone else's happiness while her own shriveled and died. She looked at Hajun, still sleeping peacefully. This man who'd somehow seen her completely in a single day. This man who'd shown her what it felt like to be valued, to be seen, to matter. She couldn't marry James. The realization settled over her with calm certainty. Even if things with Hajun went nowhere, even if this was just a beautiful moment in time, she couldn't walk down that aisle. Not anymore. Not after knowing what it felt like to be truly seen. Hajun stirred, eyes opening slowly. When he saw her, his whole face softened. "You're still here." "I'm still here," Z confirmed. "But Hajun, I need to—" "I know." He sat up, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "You need to go deal with your real life." "Yes, but—" She took a breath. "But I need you to know. Yesterday wasn't— I don't regret it. Any of it." Something hopeful flickered in his eyes. "No. No. You showed me what I've been missing, what I deserve." She touched his face gently. "I need to end my engagement, not for you, not for us, but for me, because I can't marry someone who doesn't see me." Hajun caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "What happens after that? After you end it?" "I don't know. I need time to figure out who I am outside of everyone's expectations, to build the life I actually want instead of the one I accepted." She met his eyes. "But I'd like you in that life, if you're willing to wait while I figure myself out." "See, I spent 5 years stuck in one day. I can wait." He smiled. "Besides, something tells me you're worth waiting for." They kissed again, sweet and certain, a promise of possibility. Then Z called a taxi, borrowed a coat because Seoul's February morning was brutal, and prepared to face her real life. At the door, Hajun caught her hand one more time. "Z, whatever happens today, whatever they say, remember, you deserve to be happy. Not eventually, not someday, not after you've earned it. Right now. You deserve it right now." Those words carried her through the taxi ride home, through opening her apartment door to find Kioma camped out on her couch. "Oh, thank God," Kioma said, leaping up. "I was about to file a missing person report. Where have you been?" "With someone," Z said simply. "Someone who sees me." Kioma studied her face. "The businessman? Hajun?" "Yes." "Did you—" "Nothing happened. Not like you're thinking. Z dropped her borrowed coat. But everything happened. Chi, I can't marry James. Finally. Chioma pulled her into a fierce hug. Finally, you're saying it. My mother's going to be devastated. Your mother will survive. You deserve to live, Z, not just survive. They spent the next hour planning. Z would go to the wedding venue that afternoon. There was a final walkthrough scheduled, and tell James face to face. Then she'd deal with her mother. The guests, the deposits, all the logistics could wait. First, she needed to free herself. But before Z could shower and change, her apartment door flew open. Her mother stood there, key in hand. Z had given her a spare for emergencies, face tight with worry and anger. "Mama! Where were you?" Mrs. Adeyemi's voice shook. "All night, Z. All night I called. I thought something happened to you. I thought—" She pressed a hand to her chest, breathing hard. "Mama, sit down. Please." Z guided her mother to the couch, fear spiking through her. "Are you okay? Your heart?" "My heart is fine. It's my daughter who's trying to kill me." Mrs. Adeyemi sat heavily. "The wedding is in 5 days. 5 days, Z, and you disappear for a whole day. No calls, no messages." "I'm sorry, I should have called." "Should have." Her mother's voice rose. "You should have been here. The dress fitting, the florist needs final numbers, James's parents are arriving tomorrow and—" She stopped, really looking at Z for the first time. "You're wearing different clothes. Those aren't yours." Z's stomach dropped. "Mama, where were you a days?" Her mother's eyes narrowed. "Who were you with?" This was it. The moment everything came crashing down. Z could lie, could manufacture some excuse about staying at a friend's place, about her phone dying, could buy herself time to have this conversation on her own terms. But she was so tired of lying, so tired of managing everyone else's feelings while her own got buried deeper and deeper. "I was with someone," Z said quietly. "A man I met at my engagement party." Her mother went very still. "You were with another man. The night before." She couldn't finish. "Adaz, what have you done?" "Nothing happened, Mama. We just talked." "All night? You talked all night?" Mrs. Adeyemi stood, pacing. "Do you know what people will say? What the Williams family will think if they find out?" "Mama, I don't care what people think." "Well, you should care. You should care about your family's reputation, about your future, about—" She stopped abruptly, hand going to her chest again. "Mama?" Z was on her feet instantly. "Mama, sit down. Breathe." "I can't," her mother gasped. "I can't breathe. The stress, Z. The stress of this—" Guilt crashed over Z like a wave. This was exactly what she'd feared. Her choices, her happiness, causing her mother's health to deteriorate. She helped her mother sit, got water, rubbed her back while Mrs. Adeyemi's breathing slowly normalized. "I'm fine," her mother said finally, waving off Z's concern. "But Z, you can't do this. You can't throw away everything we've built because of one night with some— His name is Kang Hajun, and he's not just some man." The words came out firmer than Z intended. "He's someone who sees me, Mama. Really sees me. Not who he wants me to be, not who's convenient, just me. James sees you. James thinks my work is a hobby. He left me alone at our own engagement party so he could get drunk. He didn't even notice I was gone yesterday, Mama. He was too busy being angry that I was embarrassing him." Mrs. Adeyemi was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "Marriage isn't about butterflies and romance, Z. It's about partnership, about building a life together." "But shouldn't it start with respect, with actually liking each other?" Z knelt in front of her mother. "Mama, be honest. Do you think James respects me?" Her mother looked away. "He's a good man from a good family." "That's not what I asked." "Z, what do you want me to say? That I see the way he dismisses you sometimes? That I wish he valued your dreams more?" Mrs. Adeyemi's eyes filled with tears. "But life isn't perfect. We make compromises. No." Z said it firmly. "Maybe you had to compromise. Maybe that was your life, your choice. But I don't have to make the same choice, Mama." "You're breaking my heart." The words hit like a fist to the gut. I'm breaking your heart by choosing myself? I'm sick, Z. The MS. You know stress makes it worse. And this wedding is the one thing I've dreamed about since you were born. Seeing you walk down that aisle, settled, secure. Her mother grabbed Z's hands. Please, Beta, please don't take this from me. Z felt herself wavering. 5 years of managing her mother's health, of being careful, of measuring every choice by how it would affect someone else. The old patterns pulled at her like gravity. But then she thought about June's words. You deserve to be happy. Right now. You deserve it right now. Mama, Z said gently but firmly, I love you, but I can't set myself on fire to keep you warm anymore. Her mother pulled back like she'd been slapped. How dare you? I'm not blaming you. I'm just stating a fact. Z's voice shook but held. I've spent 5 years trying to be easy, manageable, not a burden, making myself smaller so I didn't stress you out. But Mama, I'm disappearing. I'm vanishing into this life everyone expects me to live, and if I marry James, her voice broke, if I marry him, I'll be gone completely. So you'll choose this man you just met? This June? No, I'm choosing me. Whether June and I work out or not, I can't marry James. I don't love him, Mama. I don't think I ever did. They sat in heavy silence. Finally, Mrs. Adeyemi stood. I need to go. I can't. I need time to process this. Mama, don't. Her mother's voice was cold. Don't call me. Don't come to the house. You want to choose yourself? Fine. But don't expect me to stand by and watch you destroy your life. She left, the door clicking shut with terrible finality. Kioma emerged from the bedroom where she'd been hiding. Z, she said softly, I'm okay. But Z was crying, great shaking sobs. I'm okay. This is good. This is me choosing myself. This is hard, Kioma finished, pulling her into a hug. It's okay to be sad even when you're making the right choice. If you're feeling this in your soul, drop a comment below telling me about a time you had to choose yourself. We're building a community here. An hour later, showered and dressed and still feeling like her insides had been scooped out, Z headed to the wedding venue. She'd texted James, we need to talk. Meet me at the venue. His response, about time. My mum's been calling asking where her future daughter-in-law disappeared to. The venue was a luxury hotel in Gangnam, all marble and crystal and excessive elegance. James was waiting in the bridal suite, on his phone as usual. He looked up when Z entered, irritation clear on his face. Where the hell have you been? I need to talk to you about the wedding. Yeah, no kidding. Do you know how embarrassing it was when your mom called my mom asking if I knew where you were? James set down his phone. What was so important that you couldn't answer your phone? I was with someone. That got his attention. What? I spent yesterday and last night with someone else. The man who offered me money. Kang June. I was with him. James's face went through several expressions. Surprise, anger, then something calculating. Did you get the money? Z stared at him. That's your question? Not if I'm okay, not what happened, just, did I get the money? Well, yeah, I mean, he shrugged. I told you I was okay with it if he wanted to pay you for hanging out. Did he transfer it? Yes, 5 billion won. James's eyes went wide. Holy shit. Z, that's incredible. He actually laughed. Okay, so this is what we'll do. We'll use half for the honeymoon, extend it to 3 weeks. Then put a down payment on that Gangnam apartment I showed you. Maybe I can finally open that gallery without depending on my dad. He was pacing now, excited. This changes everything, babe. You're brilliant. Z felt something cold settle in her chest. James, I just told you I spent the night with another man. I know. And, yeah, he waved a hand dismissively. That's whatever. Little weird, but hey, 5 billion won. I can get over it. I kissed him. That stopped James mid-pace. You what? I kissed him. I spent the whole night talking to him. And James, Z took a breath, I'm calling off the wedding. Silence. Complete ringing silence. Then James laughed. Very funny. Come on, Z, we don't have time for drama. My parents are landing tomorrow. I'm not joking. Z. His voice took on that patient tone she hated, the one that made her feel like a child. You're stressed. Pre-wedding jitters. Everyone gets them, but you can't actually call off the wedding. Everything's paid for. Everyone's invited. Our families... I don't care. You don't... James's face darkened. Are you serious right now? You spent one night with some rich guy and suddenly you're calling off our wedding. It's not about him. It's about me. About the fact that you just found out I kissed someone else, and your first concern was whether I got the money. Because you're being dramatic. So you kissed someone? Big deal. People get cold feet before weddings. He moved closer, grabbing her shoulders. Look, I'm willing to forgive this. We'll pretend it never happened. You got paid, we got money, everyone wins. Z removed his hands from her shoulders. I don't want your forgiveness, James. I want out. Out? His voice rose. You want out? Do you know what this will do to me? To my reputation? I told everyone, about our perfect relationship. I've been posting about our wedding for months, and now you want to make me look like an idiot? This isn't about you. Of course it's about me. I'm the one who's going to look like a fool when people find out my fiancé ran off with the first rich guy who paid attention to her. The words were meant to hurt, and they did. But Z was done being hurt by James Williams. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I'm sorry this is happening like this. I'm sorry I didn't have the courage to end it sooner. But James, we both know this isn't working. We haven't been happy in months, maybe years. I'm happy. Are you? Really? Z met his eyes. Or are you just comfortable? Because there's a difference. James's jaw clenched. You're making a huge mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. Fine. He pulled out his phone. You want out? We're out. But that money, that's half mine. We were going to be married. That was going to be our money. The money was offered to me. For spending time with him. That's basically... He stopped himself, but the implication hung heavy between them. Say it, Z challenged. Say what you're thinking. Nothing. Just, you can't keep all of it. That's not fair. Z almost laughed. After 4 years together, after all the ways he'd dismissed her dreams and ignored her needs, he was worried about money being fair. I already returned it, she said. You what? I transferred it back. I don't want money that makes me feel bought, and I certainly don't want to share it with you. James's face went purple. You're insane. You're actually insane. You just threw away 5 billion won. I threw away money I didn't earn. What I'm keeping is my dignity. Z moved toward the door. I'll deal with cancelling everything. I'll take responsibility for the mess. You can tell people whatever you want, that I'm crazy, that I'm a flake, whatever helps you save face. But we're done, James. She left before he could respond, walked out of the luxury hotel into Seoul's afternoon sun, and felt lighter than she had in years. Terrified, yes. Facing her mother's disappointment and social embarrassment and the collapse of the life everyone expected her to live. Yes. But free. Finally. Completely free. Her phone rang. Hajun. Hi, she answered, suddenly shy. Hi. His voice was warm. How did it go? I ended it. The engagement, the wedding, everything. Silence. Then, are you okay? Not congratulations, or I'm glad, or now we can be together. Just concern for how she was feeling, and that, more than anything, told Z she'd made the right choice. I'm terrified, she admitted. My mother won't talk to me. James called me insane. I have to cancel a 200-person wedding, but Hajun, yes, I'm also happy. Is that crazy? To be happy and terrified at the same time? She could hear the smile in his voice. That's called being alive, Z. Really, truly alive. What do I do now? Whatever you want. That's the whole point. Z stood on the sidewalk, watching Seoul flow around her. Millions of people living millions of lives, each one messy and complicated and real. I want to see you, she said. Is that okay? Or is it too soon or too much pressure or... Z, Hajun interrupted gently. I spent 5 years alone because I thought moving on meant forgetting. You just taught me that's not true. He paused. Come over. We'll order food, watch bad TV, be disasters together. That sounds perfect. She hung up and caught a taxi back to Bukchon. Back to Hajun's Hanok, where she'd spent one perfect, impossible day that had somehow changed everything. He was waiting at the gate, and when Z saw him, something in her chest settled. This might not work out. They might be moving too fast, might crash and burn. She still had to face her mother, deal with wedding cancellations, figure out what her life looked like now. But right now, in this moment, she was choosing herself. And that was enough. Hajun pulled her into his arms and Z let herself be held. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. For what? For seeing me. For showing me what I deserve. She pulled back to look at him. I don't know what happens next. Neither do I, but... He brushed hair from her face. I'd like to find out, if you would. Z smiled, real and bright and free. Yeah, I'd like that too. They went inside, and for the first time in 5 years, Hajun didn't spend Valentine's Day mourning what he'd lost. And for the first time in 5 years, Z didn't spend it pretending to be happy. They were just two people, messy and complicated and real, choosing themselves and each other and possibility. And that, Z thought as Hajun pulled her close on the couch, was more than enough. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and comment below. What would you do in Z's situation? Would you choose the safe path or the scary one? Let's talk about it. 3 months later, Z stood in the empty gallery space in Itaewon. Afternoon light streaming through industrial windows. The walls were bare, the floor concrete, but she could see it, could see exactly what this space would become. It's perfect, she breathed. Hajun stood beside her, hands in his pockets, smiling. You're sure? Completely. Z turned to him. This is it. This is the gallery. 3 months since she'd called off her wedding. 3 months of her mother refusing to speak to her. Though Kioma reported that Mrs. Adeyemi was slowly, grudgingly starting to accept that Z wasn't going to change her mind. 3 months of therapy, of figuring out who she was outside of everyone's expectations. And 3 months with Hajun, taking it slow, building something real. No rushing, no pressure. Just two people learning to trust again, to open up, to be vulnerable. I have something for you, Hajun said, pulling out an envelope. What is this? Open it. Z opened the envelope and froze. A check for 5 billion won. Hajun! Before you say no, he interrupted gently. This isn't about us. This isn't payment or obligation or anything complicated. This is an investment. He gestured around the empty space. In this gallery, in your dream. I want to be your first investor, silent partner, no control, just belief in what you're building. Tears filled Z's eyes. I can't accept this. You can, because it's not charity, it's business. He pulled out another paper. I had my lawyers draw up a proper investment agreement. Market rates, clear terms. You're not taking a handout, Z. You're accepting an investment from someone who believes in you. Z stared at the check, at this man who'd somehow understood exactly what she needed to hear. Not let me take care of you, but let me believe in you. Okay, she whispered. Okay, but I'm paying you back, with interest. I'm counting on it. I want to see this place succeed. Hajun pulled her close. I want to see you succeed. They stood in the empty gallery holding each other, and Z felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Pure, uncomplicated hope for the future. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is your mother. Kioma gave me your new address. I would like to visit, if that's acceptable. Z showed Hajun the text. She wants to visit. How do you feel about that? Scared? Hopeful? Z leaned into him. Ready. She texted back. Tomorrow for tea? 3 p.m. The response came immediately. I will be there. Z pocketed her phone and looked around the gallery again. So much work ahead. So many details to figure out. But for the first time in her life, she was building something that was truly hers. Not what her mother wanted, not what James thought was practical, just hers. "Thank you," she said to Hajun, "for everything." "Thank you," he countered, "for teaching me how to live again." They kissed, sweet and certain, in the empty gallery that would soon be filled with art and life and everything beautiful that came from choosing yourself. And Z understood, finally, that this was what happiness felt like. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Messy and complicated, and absolutely, perfectly real. The end. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If this story inspired you, subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Drop a comment about the bravest choice you've ever made. And remember, you deserve to be happy. Not someday, not eventually. Right now. You deserve it right now.